Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. Something I look forward to is having the opportunity to provide something a little different about the games that I'm playing on my channel. And today happens to be one of those days. I have a very special guest with me today, Jan-Martin Nachtegeller of Sparrow Night Games. Now, Jan-Martin is co-owner of Sparrow Night along with Stefan Reismus. And of course, they are the developers of NewsTower. Now, Jan Martin and I are separated by about 7 time zones, so this was done through the magic of the internet, but I couldn't be more pleased than having the opportunity to chat with him. Thank you for joining me, Jan Martin. And just to be clear, NewsTower is still in early access, is that right?
It is still in early access, yeah. We're nearing the end, but still in early access.
Very good. And you are one of the owners of Sparrow Night.
That is correct. Yeah.
I'm curious if you have other projects that are happening or that might be coming up.
We are, but mostly in very early concept phase for Sparrow Night at least. I do work on another project from time to time that is called Turmoil. That's a game also on Steam that I make with another company we launched it in 2016. It's about oil drilling in end of 1800s in America, and so that's what I mainly work on the side, but it's almost always full-time news tower.
Very good. Well, I am going to check out Turmoil. It is on my wish list, actually. I just haven't ever pulled the trigger. But now that I know there's a connection there,
It's a bit on
absolutely.
the lighter
Yeah,
lighter side. It has some management elements, but it's more arcadey, I would say.
understood, understood. Well, so what was the inspiration for coming up with News Tower? So for those people that might be watching this that aren't familiar with News Tower, my take is you are put in charge of a 1930s newspaper in New York City, and you kind of have to manage the day-to-day of the operation, including hiring reporters and assigning stories that come in through the newswire. And it is a fantastic little game. When you first, my experience was first looking at it, I didn't realize the depth it was going to have. It felt like it was a puzzle game, and I'd say that's probably fair. But I'm amazed at what you've done with it. It's just a really deep experience, and I'm having such a ball with it.
Thanks. Yeah, I saw quite some videos of yours. Yeah, News Tower is of course evolving. So it it started out a bit simpler as an idea, also way back. But yeah, we always had the idea of making it a newspaper tycoon, and yeah, just gradually also with other devs within the team, we honed this out of clay. Let's say it like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
We and we have a set part of bigger pillars we need to tackle. That's always been a bit of the plan. But yeah, lots of it is also from feedback from players and just things that we find out through playing and understanding what the game is better. I could tell a bit about how it started. You asked, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So News Tower as an ID started quite long ago. There was, I think, maybe 2017 or something. I came past an article. I don't know where it was. I think it was Mashable or something like that, where I saw lots of pictures of the 1942, I think, New York Times and all the departments and yeah, there I saw the linotype machine, which is an incredible piece of equipment from
Yeah.
that time, and lots of other stuff. And instantly thought like, wow, this could be a cool tycoon game. So I also checked Steam and other play if there were a few newspaper games, but like you said, they are more puzzle-ish related. They aren't as management heavy. And then
Right.
I think around that time, I also, a bit later, I played This Is the Police. I don't know if you know that game.
Yep. Yep.
And I really liked, just the mechanic of sending your police out on these cases, and I instantly thought back on the newspaper setting, and I thought like, this could really work this kind of way that you send reporters, then bring them back to your tower, and then you have to produce your newspaper. So that's how it started a bit as an idea. And still took like maybe at least a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years before I um, actually started to properly work on it. And like I said earlier, I still work sometimes for Turmoil, with that company called Gamius. I pitched the project to them, but they were very occupied, had their own projects, so that wasn't a good fit for them. So I thought like, I really want to make a game of my own. For Turmoil, I'm the artist and I do design, but mostly through the visual aspect. So um, not like the base idea for Turmoil was already there. I just added a lot of design and ideas through things I had to design. The whole, you didn't play it, but there's a village and how that mechanic works and stuff I made up. But that got me hungry in making my own games, and that's a bit how NewsTower started. And in end of 2018, I met my co-owner of Sparrow Night, Stefan Rijsmus, and he was looking. He had another company that was more in advertisement business, and he was looking for new, opportunities, new inspiration. And he thought like, why not start a game company and try to make that game? And that's how it started.
What did you do before Sparrow Night?
I've been educated as an audiovisual designer. So I was at a, you called, I think, in university, but we called an academy, an art academy, where I studied audiovisual design, and I graduated with documentary making
Very good.
as a director. And I did that at the beginning for a bit, but I quickly found out that at least in the Netherlands, it's very subsidized if you want to do that. So the bigger streams of money all come from the government and government related networks that that makes it so that it's quite competitive. Not only that, you are most of the time just writing papers to get a project running. And I'm just not that kind of person. I just
Understood.
want to make stuff and not try to get a project off the ground for 2 years or more. So I got discouraged a bit by that. Then I worked for a company that did editing for Nike videos, for in-store videos, and for some commercials. But then one of my best friends, I told him I kind of maybe want to work in games, because earlier on I had it was around 2007. I already had an idea of maybe going to a game design school. But 2007, that was the year that the iPhone came out. There was no real indie game scene yet. So it was like, oh, if I want to work in games, I likely have to go to America, or which I'm not against America, but that felt like too far away. I wanted to
Sure.
stay, and also a risk like, I can do this as a study, but will there be a job for it? And but gradually, when I did the audiovisual design study, the indie scene really started to bloom. And by the end, when I was done in 2011. Yeah, there was quite a good indie scene, and it was really up and coming. And then since I didn't really find my way in the audiovisual space, I was like, maybe I should return to my initial idea of doing something in game development. But I didn't have a study, I didn't have a project yet. And that's one of my best friends. I told him, like, hey, maybe I'm thinking about going into games. And he was doing production work for also an audiovisual company. And he said, like, oh yeah, like back in the day when we used to design these simple board game IDs, and we worked in Game Maker a bit. And he was also really excited right away. So he's more assertive than me. So
Yeah.
I think a month later he got a job as a producer in a game company.
Oh, very
And
good.
then I did, yeah, that was really cool. And then like half a year later, he called me out of the blue, like, hey, they are looking for an artist for this game project called Turmoil. And uh, maybe if you could make some mock-ups or some concepts, they might find you a good fit. And that's what I did. And that was in 2014, I think, the end of 2014. And yeah, they took me in. So that's how I got started in games.
Very good.
And yeah, before that, I did some audiovisual work, like I said, for Nike, and but also all kinds of jobs. Worked for the post office, stuff like that.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's it's interesting to me how many folks get into games through a back channel of some sort where that isn't it may be what they wanted to do, but it's not what they set out to do initially, and they end up
Yeah.
landing there. And
You
what a
see it quite often.
you do, and what a wonderful story. One of the things I've been fascinated by in News Tower is the news
Hmm.
stories that come up and how
Yeah.
they are actual news stories from the time. And I'm curious how you go about researching those. Are they all quotable stories like that, or are there just some that are, highlights of things that were happening in the world?
Yeah, yeah, it's a combination.
Okay.
It's something we still working on. So, like in the current game, it's not like fully fleshed out. I think most years do have a lot of content, but we still need to cover a bit. How we research it is like, yeah, we use the internet to find news from that time. So Wikipedia or the Wayback Machine, all kinds of stuff. And then I write in a big Excel sheet just the topics that I really like, and I think like which could be interesting. Also, I want to have a good balance within the categories, right? We have categories: crime, politics, economy, society, entertainment, sports. So I want to cover all of those. Um, I want to, yeah, have a good spread of all the years. So yeah, I think for NewsTower that's the biggest job. It's like the content. It costs so much time to do,
Yeah.
and we do have the how do you call, for the New York Times. You have the time machine, so you can look through the old newspapers. We also look at that for the more small news items. Of course, we don't quote them word for word, but we take the essence and then make something from that. Yeah, and our luck is, of course, that we don't write the full article, but we have the headlines, right? So we can
Right.
always take pieces of what's in the text and then make a headline from that. Like I said, I have a big Excel list, and I have another Excel list where I can see like, oh, I want these tags, those story tags, right? The
Hmm.
topics that I need to put in. So which story fits best with what, and then I ask also Chat GPT not to
Yeah.
write it, but to structure my all my inputs. So I have like, okay, I have this and this, and I want. I need locations for it. I need because that's what it's really good at, right?
Yeah,
It can see, okay, this is in 1931 America, talking about this. What could be relevant locations that are actual locations from the time? Stuff like that. It can do really well. What it can't really do is like write proper text, because if you say like generate a title, it can do it, but it's very often very generic, and it tends to reuse lots of words. So if you put them together, you see yeah, heavy similarities.
sure.
So yeah, it's a bit like that. So we use every facet of the internet. We use a bit of new technology, and the rest is just hard grinding, lots of work.
Yeah,
Yeah, like for Europe, that's the continent we just added. It was more easy to find also news close to us, right? We know the sources where to get it. But that might be way more difficult when we come to South America or Africa or Asia or the
yeah,
oceanic. So
yeah.
curious how that will go, but the plan is to cover every continent. Of course, we don't need as much news because it's a USA based newspaper, so every month you might get, for example, two items in South America. You don't need like a giant pallet of news.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
next, yeah, so that, but that's mostly a productional thing. What's also important is that, of course, we want to have some fun. I think we did that a bit on the beginning. So write fictional humorous stories, or just have random facts. Or sometimes it's not news from that time, but it's an event or something big that happened that we know in hindsight that is big on technology or whatever. We want to make an item for that, so that or it could be something about how relatively cheap it was still, right? With inflation now, so funny elements of how somebody bought a house for whatever $20 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Those were the days.
still a house that he needed to do a lot on, but stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so history, humor, and just fascinating facts is a bit of the main staples that we want to highlight in the news.
Very good. And I've noticed that the quotes that come up at the end of the week, once your paper runs, and you
Hmm.
usually get two quotes, right, that'll pop up. A lot of
Yeah,
those are historical quotes. And I was
yeah,
really
yeah,
impressed by that too. I looked into some of
yeah,
those
yeah.
and that's just fantastic.
Yeah, we'd like to just have. It's not only we chose a visual that's quite light because it's quite heavy material. Sometimes we want to also bring a bit of lightness to it. Same with the quotes. It's a combination of just funny things, but we also want to be serious, right? About it can be philosophical about the freedom of press, or just yeah. So we also always, when I see one of those quotes come by, I just write them down. It's like, oh, this
Oh,
could be
okay.
good for the game.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're fun. They're fun. If I'm being honest, I kind of look forward to see what quotes are going to come up for how my paper went for a week because, some
Nice.
weeks I know it was not very good, right? I've got a bunch of bad tags or just not a whole lot of stuff. And yeah, that's a lot of fun. And I've been playing this. So I was in your closed beta and I was thrilled that I
Nice.
got selected for that. That was a little over a year ago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you guys shut it down and I was so upset because I was just loving the game. And I think I wrote to you at the time and said, "Hey, if it opens back up, please let me know." And you were very gracious and wrote back. And
Yeah, no
then just
problem.
one day it popped up on sale and I'm like, "Oh, I got it." And I jumped in there and I just really, really enjoy playing the game. I won't say that it's the only thing I play, but it's up there on my number of hours anymore. It's way, way up there. So uh,
Nice, nice. Yeah,
and
well,
it's repeatable.
yeah, that's definitely still a thing that we improve on, right? We really look at how many people come back also and play it again. And we know at the beginning that players who really loved it will come back, but we also want a reason to come back, right? Because now you could play all the factions, so the NPCs, and so if you're done with the game, you did most of it. But we also want to create more of a replayability, and that's also heavily what we work on at the moment. Things that you cannot get in one run. So if you do a playthrough, you will have to choose for certain things that you miss out on other stuff, just to have this element of a more lively setting with where choices matter, but at the same time create more replayability.
It's a delicate balance, and I think you're nailing it right now. I think you're doing very well with it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult and delicate balance, and we have many discussions about just really intricate little stuff, which maybe lots of players won't even notice, but at first, but will have a big impact on how the game plays, and yeah,
It's those
always
little
interesting.
things that we spend all the time on as developers, right?
Exactly, yeah. And you hope that players notice, and it's really cool to hear stuff like what you said about the recap when it starts, that you really look forward to the messages. Sometimes it's like, oh, I put so much effort in, we put so much effort in, and maybe lots of it just click by and don't read it, but also lots do. So that's great to hear. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. My guest today is Jan Matan Nachtegeller from Sparrow Night Games. We will continue our discussion in the next episode, and we'll talk about some of the new things that are going to be coming to NewsTower before it finishes its development cycle. I do thank you for your time. I hope you're enjoying this discussion. Jan Martin has been a great sport, letting me butcher his name. But until next time, again, thank you for yours and fair travels.